If you have a reverse osmosis faucet with an air gap, you should probably keep the air gap. It's just the way it was made to work. This is actually, my system's pretty old, but I'm opting to move the air gap from the faucet to a different location with this little mechanism here. Just to get familiar, I'm sure you know all about this, but this is my old faucet. You can see the air gap there. That's where all the noise comes from. Every once in a while you might get a drip. And then underneath you have the 1/4-inch wastewater coming up to the faucet, and then a 3/8 coming out to your drain. And then the other tube is for your supply water, your drinking water there. So this little mechanism here is actually pretty cool. It's just an air gap for reverse osmosis that can be located somewhere else. It's got the 1/4-inch coming in. The 3/8 tube going out to your drain, and then it has the the air gap on the side there. I'm just going to move it somewhere else and get rid of it under the sink. Here's what's happening with mine. I don't condone this, but it did work in a pinch. This, you can hear it gurgling and running in there when the system's kind of empty. I took part of a foam paintbrush and stuffed in there, but I didn't want to leave it in there all the time. It acted like a muffler, and I'm just kind of sick of listening to it gurgle. So I just ripped a chunk off of that foam brush and stuck it in there. It can still suck air, and it still works. It just acted as like a little muffler. So I'm just afraid of leaving it in there long term. Probably not a good idea. It might get sucked in, clog the system. Might end up with bigger problems. So I'm just going to delete. That kind of helped me in a pinch, but I'm going to delete the air gap on the faucet itself and move the air gap somewhere else. Under here you can see, like everybody else's sink, full of stuff. I don't have room for osmosis, the tank and everything under here, but you can see the drain and then my supply water coming up and the wastewater coming up through the cabinet. If you opt to put this thing under your cabinet, you're going to have to put it up pretty high. Because it's a gravity drain and you don't want to get it clogged and whatnot. And you get it under there, you can probably, you're not going to hear it under there. But I opted to put it down in the basement where the rest of my equipment is. I put it down here just to get it out of the way, and it was a little easier to change the filters. I had to get a new membrane cartridge there and had to replace some things. But there's my wastewater there. That goes up to the sink. I'm going to shut the water off, the water supply, drain the system so there's no pressure in there, and then I can work on this thing. I'm actually going to tie the drain to my furnace drain, and I'm going to mount it up on the wall there in the basement. I don't know, face height. I guess there's no rhyme or reason as to where I put it, but I'm going to mount it right there somewhere and drain it into the floor drain here. So I just got started by, getting some pieces parts for my drain, cutting them off, and rehooked up the furnace and the AC drain, and then ran it over to the wall there for my reverse osmosis. Put a couple straps on it here and there to keep it rigid so it's not moving around or, bump it or something. Here on this unit, you can see the 1/4-inch. I already got that pushed on there. These just push on. The 3/8 drain, I got about 12 inches of that hose there. Push that on all the way. And then I just mounted it to the wall with that little sleeve that keeps the hoses kind of in line there, just to keep it a little bit neater. So I fastened that to the studs with a couple of screws. That little sleeve there, I got a screw in that, just kind of hold it in place, and then got my drain down into the drain pipe and put a couple extra clamps on it, little hose clamps there for those lines, just to keep them from flopping around. Then I can redo the 1/4-inch from there to the unit, which is on the other side of the furnace. So those little fittings, those little push fittings, I use a little 1/4-inch wrench and push against that ring. You can push down and pull out on the hose. But here's one thing you got to remember. This little flow control, that little thing that's inside the pipe there, do not lose that. This is a very integral part of the system. Water comes in, it restricts the flow down to a pinhole, and it puts pressure on the system, so it forces water through the membrane, blah, blah, blah. You got to have that, so don't lose it. So I'm just pushing that in. It's pretty tight. Push it all the way into your pipe, and then you can reinsert the pipe back into the fitting. You kind of need two hands to do that, and make sure it's engaged all the way before you turn the system back on. So I shut the faucet off upstairs, got the water turned back on, and going to give it a test here. The system's completely empty, so I don't know if you can hear it, but it runs pretty steady when it's recharging. You can kind of see the water running through that clear tube, like the clear tube. So if it ever gets moldy, I can tell it needs cleaned out. And that's actually going to help keep my furnace drain a little bit clearer, because water is going to be running in there constantly. So yeah, it's pretty sleek, and it works. It works like it's supposed to. So I'm going to snip off the old line and pull it down through the basement, the old discharge line for the wastewater. Watch you don't cut your main supply line there. And then the drain, the one that goes to the drain, I'll snip that up high too. These things are a pain to get to, when you got to change your faucet or whatever. So if my faucet ever goes bad again, or when it does, I should say, I've had this system for like 20 years. I can pull that out then. So I'm going to get rid of that drain stuff and just put a regular tailpiece on my sink from there up, and get rid of all these extra fittings and whatnot. So I have a little bit more space under my sink. So if you need to do this, I got my system charging for a while, so I'm going to turn the water back on, and works great. Shut it off. No gurgling sound. I moved the gurgle to the basement, so I don't have to listen to it anymore. But yeah, you got a problem like that, you can check out some of this stuff in the description, and hope that helps you out.